Harker was known as a young and courageous commander. During the Kralsk invasion, he had faced the harsh realities of war and lost his family. Now, on a stormy night, he was huddled behind a lone rock. The rain fell silently, and Harker's face bore the dark traces of the past. In that moment, Harker's thoughts drifted back to the past, the old, loving home, the safe haven of his family. Now, it was just a shadow lingering in the darkness. As he lost himself in these thoughts, footsteps were heard, and 3 men approached him. Their clothes were dirty, their eyes carried the fatigue of war, and they were Harker's closest friends. First, Liam stepped forward. His eyes were filled with concern, and his voice carried a clear sense of urgency. "Harker, we're glad to have found you. You shouldn't be alone. We've heard news that the Kralsk are advancing. We need to stop them." Next, Aidan approached and placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. "I know the pain is great, but if we lose the war, the tears you've shed for your family will have been in vain. This is the way to honor them." Harker felt a bit of relief with his friend's support. At that moment, a fierce lightning bolt illuminated the sky, casting the memories of the past before his eyes. The old house reappeared as a part of his memories. Harker bowed his head and pulled out a photograph from his pocket. The photo showed an old memory of his family. "That house, that day, my family was there," he said, his voice trembling. Eamon took a deep breath and supported Harker. "I understand, Harker, but we need to chart a new course without forgetting what we've been through. With your leadership, perhaps we can put an end to this nightmare." After a long silence, Harker carefully examined the photograph. His eyes were moist, but a determined expression settled on his face. "Yes, you're right. Living in the past cannot prevent us from shaping our future. Now, we must win this war against the Kralsk. We will defend not only our existence, but also the memory of our loved ones." His friends lined up behind Harker, and they set out again. As the rain fell, seemingly a sign of future victory, Harker and his friends boldly continued their march. In the distance, the silhouette of the advancing Kralsk village emerged, and Harker and his comrades pressed on with hope and determination. The room was filled with resistance fighters, silently waiting for Harker to speak. Men and women of various ages focused on him with expressions that carried both exhaustion and hope. In one corner, Maria, a young soldier, was cleaning her weapon. Next to her, the elderly Dr. Samuel was quietly taking notes. "The Kralsk are underestimating us," Harker began, his voice echoing in the room. "But we will not give up. We will take this world back from them." Harker spread the map on the table and began marking strategic points. "This is the Kralsk's main control center," he said, pointing to the center of the map with his finger. "If we capture this point, we can cut off their communication networks and weaken their defenses." Maria looked at the map with curiosity and asked, "How will we achieve that? The Kralsk are very powerful, and their technology is far more advanced than ours." Harker turned to the young soldier and said, "Power and technology are important, but our greatest advantage is our hope and courage. There's something the Kralsk don't understand. We are people fighting to protect our loved ones and our freedom." Dr. Samuel adjusted his glasses and said, "General, our medical supplies are limited. We need more resources to treat our wounded. Also, we must minimize civilian casualties during this operation." Harker nodded and said, "I know, Samuel. That's why we're making careful plans. Ensuring everyone's safety is our priority." In a corner, John, a seasoned soldier and one of the experienced members of the resistance, spoke up. "Harker, for this plan to succeed, we need inside information. Attacking without knowing the Kralsk's weaknesses would be suicide." Harker turned to John and said, You're right. That's why we'll send a team to gather inside information. We will operate in secrecy and strike at the right moment. As the meeting progressed, the resistance fighters began to implement Harker's plans. In various sections of the underground bunker, ammunition and medical supplies were being prepared. Maria was training young resistance members, while Dr. Samuel had set up a corner to treat the wounded. Harker was in the center of the room, reviewing the map again when John approached and asked, "Are we ready, General?" Harker took a deep breath and replied, "We're ready. This battle won't be easy. But as humans, we never lose hope even in the toughest times. We'll show the Kralsk what that means." The faces of the resistance fighters shone with determination and courage. Harker raised his hands and declared, "This world is ours. We will not bow to the Kralsk. Together, we will take back this planet." Encouraged by General Harker's words, the resistance fighters were united in their resolve and sworn to victory. In the dark underground bunker, the light of hope began to shine again. The Kralsk were unaware of the challenge they were about to face. But the humans were resolute in their fight for their loved ones and their freedom. Under Harker's leadership, the small but effective raids were causing significant damage to enemy lines, thanks to his strategic genius and the courage of his people. Each operation was tense and thrilling. This time, the target was an important enemy ammunition depot. The team advanced through the night in silence, approaching the enemy lines. The moon peeked through the clouds from time to time, providing some light for Harker and his team as they swiftly moved through the shadows of the dark forest. Harker trusted each member of his team and guided them carefully. Harker examined the map closely and turned to his team. "All right, the depot is right here," he said, pointing to a spot on the map with his finger. "We need to be quiet and quick. Elena, you'll observe from the high point. Ronan, prepare the explosives. Mara, you're in charge of communications. Finn, come with me." The team positioned themselves according to Harker's instructions. Elena climbed to a high ridge and began scanning the area with her binoculars. "It looks clear," she murmured over the radio. Ronan approached the target with swift and silent steps, placing the explosives carefully. Every move was executed with precision and caution. "Explosives are set," he whispered into the radio. Harker gestured for the team to advance. Finn stayed right next to Harker as they approached the depot carefully. When they reached the door, Harker nodded to Finn. Finn slowly opened the door with his strong arms and neutralized the enemy soldiers inside. As Ronan activated the explosives, Harker shouted, "Get out!" The team quickly began to retreat. Elena, from her high vantage point, covered them with gunfire. Once the team had reached a safe distance, Ronan pressed the button. A deafening explosion shattered the night. The ammunition depot was engulfed in flames, and the enemy suffered a significant loss. Harker looked at his team and smiled with pride. "Good job," he said. "Now let's head back and plan the next operation." Under Harker's leadership, these small but effective raids were demoralizing the enemy and weakening their forces. Each operation showcased the resilience and courage of humanity, making Harker and his team more legendary with each passing day. This time, their target was one of the Kralsk's most important energy plants. The darkness of the night was the best ally for Harker and his team. Moving through the shadows, the team prepared to infiltrate the plant's security systems. The surrounding security drones were carefully monitored, and every movement was analyzed. Elena opened her laptop to breach the plant's security system. "I'm about to bypass the firewall," Elena said, her fingers dancing swiftly across the keyboard. The rapidly scrolling code on the screen indicated that she was close to breaking into the system. Harker leaned over Elena. "How long will it take?" he asked. "A couple more minutes," Elena replied, her eyes focused intently on the screen. The team waited in silence for Elena to finish her task. Suddenly, a green light appeared in the corner of the screen. "Got it, the security system is down," Elena said, taking a deep breath. Harker turned to his team. "Ronan, start placing the explosives. Mara, monitor communications," he instructed. Ronan moved quickly into the plant, placing explosives carefully at critical points. "Placing the last 2 explosives," Ronan said, sweating. Meanwhile, Mara monitored enemy communication lines through the radio. "There's confusion in the communication lines. They've detected our interference," Mara said with a tense voice. Harker turned to his team. "Everyone head for the exit. Ronan, start the explosion once you're done," he said. The team moved silently and swiftly towards the exit. Once Ronan had placed the last explosive and reached a safe distance, he pressed the button. A thunderous explosion split the night as the plant was obliterated in a massive blast. Harker glanced at his team and quickly led them away. "That was a successful operation. Now let's head back and plan our next move," he said. As the team disappeared into the night, the courage and skill they demonstrated under Harker's leadership had significantly slowed the advance of the Kralsk forces. These small but effective operations were demoralizing the enemy and strengthening humanity's resistance with each passing day. Gha'rok sat behind the massive table, his eyes scanning the reports in front of him. Each line fueled his growing anger. "How is this possible?" he muttered to himself, grinding his teeth. Tarek stood beside Gha'rok. "Sir, the humans are continually sabotaging our communication lines and targeting our energy plants," Tarek said, his voice trembling slightly. Gha'rok rose from his seat and slammed the reports onto the table. "How can these stupid humans defeat our technology so easily?" he said, his voice shaking with rage. "These sabotage operations must be stopped." Vella, at the corner console, quickly reviewed the data flow. "Sir, our energy plant was completely disabled in the last attack. Our communication lines also sustained significant damage," Vella said with concern. Gha'rok paced the room angrily and turned to Gha'rok. "Gha'rok, you need to strengthen our defense systems. If these humans continue to undermine our technology, our invasion will be in jeopardy," he said. Gha'rok nodded in response. "Sir, we are reconfiguring our systems. However, the humans' methods are quite devious and creative. We are facing a type of resistance we have not encountered before," he said. Gha'rok took a deep breath, trying to calm himself. "Tarek, issue orders to all units to change their attack patterns. We will now implement stricter measures. Vella, reorganize our communication lines and increase security. Gha'rok, immediately reinforce the defense systems," he said. Tarek quickly took note of the orders. "Understood, sir," he said. Vella and Gha'rok nodded in agreement and set to their tasks. Gha'rok gave one last look at his command center team. "We will break these humans' resistance. Nothing can stand against the power of the Kralsk Empire," he said, his eyes flashing with anger. Gha'rok's fury and determination were palpable, affecting everyone in the command center. As the invading forces prepared to take more severe measures against the human resistance, Gha'rok's leadership was driving the development of a new strategy. This war would become even more challenging and brutal for both sides. The humans had proven to be far more resilient than anticipated. Especially under General Harker's leadership, the resistance had begun to pose a serious threat to the Kralsk forces. Every street corner had a trap, and every path had a sabotage team. "We must find and eliminate them," Gha'rok grumbled. "We won't leave until we have eradicated this rebellion." The Kralsk soldiers were trying every method to locate the underground bunkers, constantly scanning the area to determine their locations. The control center reported, "Scanning results are positive, but we have not yet reached the underground bunkers. We must check every corner and passage," said a Kralsk officer as he reviewed the data. Harker and his team were continuously relocating to protect the underground bunkers. As Harker reviewed a map, he said, "Elena, you've been extremely successful in masking our traces. We need to complete these relocations without the Kralsks noticing." Elena was monitoring a small device. "With our technological advantage, it will be easy to cover our tracks. We can use signal jammers and motion sensors to distract the Kralsks," she said, analyzing the data on the device's screen. As the team swiftly moved to another underground bunker, Elena deployed the signal jammers. "Signal jammers are active. The Kralsks will now have difficulty finding accurate data," she said while setting up the jammers. Ronan was placing explosives to secure the area. "We're leaving explosives behind these passages. If the Kralsks get close, we'll completely destroy the passages," he said, carefully positioning the explosives. In the Kralsk control center, an officer turned to his team. "We've detected signal distortions. The resistance is likely jamming our signals. Move quickly and check every passage," he said with a frustrated tone. Mora was managing the information flow via radio. "The Kralsks have noticed the signal distortions. The jammers are operational. Everything is under our control now," she said, relaying the information to Harker. Despite the Kralsks' efforts, Harker and his team managed to protect the underground bunkers by obscuring their tracks. Their strategic intelligence continuously misled the enemy and ensured the continuation of the resistance. This challenging struggle showcased the resilience of the resistance against the Kralsk's superior technology. The Kralsk headquarters was a sprawling command center equipped with high technology. The walls were lined with holographic screens displaying battlefields, strategic points, and moving enemy targets. Gha'rok was surrounded by maps and strategy documents spread across a large table. The atmosphere in the room was filled with anger and tension. As Gha'rok looked over the maps spread across the table, his face was marked by fury. "How can these humans resist so strongly?" he said, his voice shaking with anger. "After months of conflict, they're still showing such resistance. This is unacceptable." Tarek, trying to calm Gha'rok's anger, said, "My lord, the resistance is growing stronger every day. However, we have prepared our entire strategy for the final battle. Our plans to defeat them are flawless," he said with a reassuring tone. Gha'rok remained silent for a while, studying the maps. "The final battle will determine the fate of the Kralsk Empire. Every step must be meticulously planned and no mistakes can be made." Vella, analyzing the data on the screens, said, "Recent data shows that the resistance has fortified some strategic points. We are receiving information just in time to act. However, the attack must be executed promptly," she said with an anxious tone. Gha'rok was working on the defense systems. "Our defense systems are extremely robust, but one reason the resistance has lasted so long is their ability to bypass some of our systems. We need to be technologically prepared," he said carefully. Listening to Gha'rok's comments, Gha'rok said, "We will do whatever it takes to win this war. Ensure that our technology performs at its best. I won't tolerate any malfunctions," he said, his eyes shining with determination. Turning to his team, Gha'rok said, "Preparations must be completed. We will win the final battle against the humans. This will demonstrate the power and resolve of the Kralsk Empire." He added, "There is no turning back. For us, this war is not just about victory, it is about proving our strength." Gha'rok and his team completed their preparations for the final major battle. Gha'rok's anger and determination had mobilized the Kralsk forces. As the final battle approached as a result of all these conflicts and anger, The struggle between the Kralsks and the resistance would force both sides to reveal all their strength and strategies. On the battlefield, intense clashes and explosions lit up the sky. Between the heavy bombardments of the Kralsk forces and the counterattacks of the human resistance, the air was ablaze. The resistance's base, set up in an abandoned industrial area away from the noise of the war, was where Harker and his team were planning their final attack. Harker gathered his team around a table filled with maps and data. "Before we launch our final attack, we need to target the Kralsk forces' weakest point. We must use all our strength to find this point," he said firmly. Elena, examining a screen, said, "The weakest defensive line of the Kralsks is here. If we attack this point, we can cut their supply lines and inflict significant damage," she said, pointing carefully to the marked locations. Ronan, opening a large map, said, "We'll place explosives at this point. This will destroy the defensive lines and provide a major advantage to the resistance," he said, reviewing the plans. Mara was coordinating with other resistance members via radio. "All teams are ready to execute the attack plan. Everything must proceed in a coordinated manner. Communication must remain uninterrupted," she said quickly and clearly through the radio. Finn was preparing for the team's safety. "This attack is our last chance. The entire team needs to be alert and act precisely on time," he said, checking his weapons. After completing their final preparations, Harker and his team set out. Elena, observing the target area, said, "We're moving towards the target area. The Kralsk defense lines appear weak. It's time to launch the attack." Ronan carefully placed the explosives and said, "Explosives are in place. We can destroy the target area now. It's time to withdraw and detonate," he said, ready to trigger the explosives. When the attack was initiated, a massive explosion echoed, and the Kralsk defense line was obliterated. Harker and his team swiftly withdrew while continuing to protect their strategic points. The attack was successful. "We've managed to cut the Kralsk forces' supply lines and gained a significant advantage," Harker said, his eyes shining with triumph after the explosions. Harker and his team's final daring attack had greatly weakened the Kralsk forces' defenses. This operation marked a crucial turning point in the resistance's fate and provided a glimmer of hope in the war against the Kralsks. The resistance, acting with great courage and strategy, had succeeded in changing the course of the war. The central control room of the Kralsk warship was equipped with high-tech consoles. The screens displayed live footage of the battle, showing Kralsk soldiers' counterattacks and the resistance's movements clearly. The Kralsk forces had mobilized all their strength to counter Harker and his team's assault. On the battlefield, the Kralsk forces were trying to fend off the resistance's fire before receiving the order to withdraw. Kronor, standing in front of a screen, said, "The Kralsk soldiers' efforts to resist the attackers are effective. However, the enemy force's courage is growing stronger by the minute," he said, carefully watching the screens. Vella was communicating with commanders via radio. "The resistance has launched an intense attack. Initially, we couldn't breach the Kralsk defenses, but the order to withdraw has been issued. Communication is uninterrupted, and all units have moved to withdrawal positions," she said with an anxious tone. Gha'rok, closely observing the course of the battle, saw that the resistance was fighting with unexpected determination. "These people, can they be so resilient and courageous? They possess a fighting ability far beyond our expectations," he said, astonished. Zartan responded to Gha'rok's astonishment. "They are showing strong resistance, but we still have full control over the defense systems. We need to review our strategy now," he said, examining the systems. After receiving the withdrawal order, the Kralsk soldiers began to withdraw in an orderly manner. Harker and his team, seeing the Kralsk forces retreating, continued to advance. Harker said, "We have gained superiority on the battlefield. The Kralsk's retreat shows that our courage and strategy have been effective. We must now use this advantage, he said, encouraging his team. Gha'rok fell into deep thought about the outcome of the battle. This war has revealed the power and courage of the human resistance. They have put up an unexpected fight, and this will force the Kralsks to re-evaluate their strategies, he said, his eyes shining with mixed emotions. The resistance, with great courage and determination, had managed to turn the tide of the battle in their favor. The path back to the shelter from the battlefield was covered in dirt and smoke. The exhaustion from the battle and the complex emotions of victory were clearly visible on the faces of the resistance members. The shelter, partially damaged but still a safe haven for the resistance, awaited the team's return. At the entrance, the other team members were waiting for Harker. As Harker approached the shelter, his face was covered in blood and dirt. He bore a smile that carried the sweet memories of victory, despite being wounded. When he reached the entrance, Elena immediately rushed to his side. "Harker, we were worried about you. Is everything all right?" she asked, trying to hide her concern. Harker, tired but satisfied, nodded and said, "Yes, everything is fine. We drove back the Kralsk forces. We achieved a great victory, but it came at a heavy cost," he said, with fatigue clearly evident in his voice. As Elena tended to Harker's wounds, she said, "The injuries look serious. They need immediate attention," carefully attending to his bandages. Ronan approached them and added, "We've achieved a great feat after the battle, but we still need to be cautious. The Kralsk withdrawal doesn't necessarily mean it's over," he said while preparing bandage materials. Mora communicated the victory news to the other resistance members via radio. The victory message has reached all units. Morale is high, but there's also a bittersweet mood due to the outcome of the battle. "Everyone is savoring the victory," she said, expressing the complexity of the communication and the emotional state. Finn stood by Harker's side and said, "We accomplished something significant today. However, there is still a long way to go in the war. We need to rest a bit and plan our next steps," offering support to Harker. Harker, wounded and tired but experiencing the joy of victory, stepped into the shelter. The resistance members inside greeted him with applause. Turning to his team, Harker said, "Today, we won only one battle, but this victory shows how important our struggle is. Now, we need to rest and fully understand the significance of this victory," he said, with a mix of pain and happiness on his face. Gha'rok, watching the final images of Earth on the screen, reflected on the green areas and blue oceans of the planet symbolizing freedom. This planet has gained its freedom through the will of its people. The Kralsk race was unsuccessful here, he said with a sigh, lost in deep thought. Cronor approached Gha'rok and said, "Considering the results of the battle, the Resistance's determination and strategies proved to be much more effective than we anticipated. The humans have demonstrated great success in defending their planet," he said, presenting his analysis while looking at the screens. As Gha'rok watched the final images of Earth, he had to accept the defeat of the Kralsk race. "The humans not only defeated us on this planet, but also disrupted our plans. This is a testament to their belief in their freedom and their resistance," he said with a deep sense of acceptance. Vella checked the communication reports and said, "All communication networks on Earth have been cut, and the Kralsk forces have withdrawn. Right now, the people on the planet are enjoying their victory," she said while reviewing the reports. Zartan, reviewing the systems, remarked, "Kralsk technology was insufficient to breach Earth's defenses. The humans demonstrated effective resistance with their own methods. Our failure on this planet indicates that the problem lies with our strategy, not our technology," he said, examining the screens. Gha'rok, deep in introspection as he watched Earth, acknowledged that the freedom brought by the victory had been achieved by the humans. Earth remains free thanks to the resistance of its people. This shows that the Kralsk race must be reassessed with great seriousness, he said, his eyes reflecting a mixture of emotions. I hope you had a good time. If you liked my story, do not forget to comment and subscribe to my channel. Goodbye. See you in the next story.